we'll come back to it. But I want to let Deputy Kenny in.
Thanks, Cathaoirleach, and I want to welcome the road hauliers to the meeting, and I welcome your frank and forthright comments, particularly on the question of the overheight. I represent a Dublin North City constituency, and because the port tunnel is limited to vehicles under 4.65, those vehicles have to travel along Alfieborn Road, up to Malahide Road, along Collins Avenue, along Griffith Avenue, through high-density residential areas, and that has always been a source of annoyance and fear by the residents of that area. And the ban which came into effect last Friday is very welcome by my constituents, and I would be glad that it would remain, that ban would remain, and that it would be fully complied with. There's a number of other things that were mentioned. The question of bridge strikes. I mean, the overheight vehicles were striking some bridges, particularly along the Dart line, which runs through my constituency as well. There have been times where the Dart service has been out of action during morning peak times because of a bridge strike. And I think that was another argument for restricting the height because of the danger. I take your point that these bridges are built during the Victorian era, but indeed a lot of our infrastructure was built around that time too, But that has to be sort of accepted because, the risk to public transport if you knock out a bridge, and it's not just in Dublin, I think it happens in other parts of the country as well, but because we have a high density population in the city, that is a concern, and that is why, again, the question of the overheight vehicles was a major concern. You mentioned the question of 20-foot trucks with articulated trailers. Now, I must say, as somebody who's cycled around the city for a long time, the sight of that kind of would instill some fear in any cyclist because of the fact that, a 20-foot truck passes out a cyclist and suddenly the Arctic comes along behind. And there have been quite a number of cyclists who have been killed in those kind of circumstances. And that is why the question of the HGV ban in the city of Dublin between the two canals was introduced, and the Gardaí enforced that ban, and anybody who wants to operate outside that ban has to get a permit from Dublin City Council. And it's because of that concern about the safety of cyclists and pedestrians and indeed other road users. And I think that statistics have shown that since that ban was introduced, the number of fatal accidents in the city has dropped very considerably. And that's a credit to the road hauliers who in fact have complied with the ban. But I think it's all, as you said at the outset, it's all about road safety. It's all about greening our transport network, and at the same time accepting that your industry plays a vital role in the economy and in the industry. And because we are an island, we don't carry freight by rail; it's all carried by road. Unfortunately, the container terminal in the Dublin port was built on the south port some years back. The railhead is on the north port, so somebody made that decision. It sort of removed the possibility of putting a lot of the containers onto rail because the container terminal was on the south port, and that meant that some of the trucks had to go around through around the city and over the toll bridge as well. And I think they were exempt from the tolls as well because of that. But I take you raised some interesting questions about illegal haulage, and that would be of concern if there are hauliers operating illegally. Now, are we talking about hauliers in Northern Ireland who are transporting goods from the north of Ireland into Dublin port and cross? And there is a lot of cross-border trade anyway. But are we talking about when we're talking about illegal hauliers? I think you mentioned some port of fines where it was said that some of the haulage operators are operating illegally. I'd like to know more about that, because that would be of concern if the genuine compliant haulage operator was being undercut by somebody operating illegally.
Okay. Just on your last comment there, yes, what's happening is out-of-state operators that from the UK, Northern Ireland, Holland, Germany, were operating within the island or within the south of Ireland, 26 counties, without an Irish haulage licence. To move goods from A to B in Ireland, you need a haulage licence. Now, these companies had licences to move in their own countries, or to move within countries from, say, Ireland to Germany or Germany to Ireland, but they don't have a licence to move within Ireland, which is very important. And we would appreciate that you do a further investigation, because it's happening in Dublin Port every day of the week. Fines was a very clean-cut example. We knew where the loads were coming from. They knew where they were going to. There's hundreds of trucks in and out of the port every day in Dublin, and they are operating illegally. We're the only jurisdiction in Europe that's tolerating this. It's called breach of cabotage. You know, if I, as an Irish haulier, bring a load to Germany, I can pick up a load in Berlin and bring it to Frankfurt. I can pick up a load in Frankfurt and bring it to Cologne, but I must then pick up a load in Cologne and bring it home to Ireland or bring it to the UK. I cannot operate my base in Germany for obvious reasons, or social reasons regards employment laws, there's cost reasons, road tax. None of those are being adhered to in this country. And the Road Safety Authority chose not to enforce it. We're calling on the committee here to do a full investigation as to why. As regards to the other comments on the European modular system, yes, of course, a 25-metre vehicle inside in Dublin City, that's not going to happen because, as you said, with the HGV ban, you cannot drive in the city now anyway. What we're looking at here is being used on our motorway network and on our national routes. But we must remember, take Grafton Street down to take Marks and Spencer's, any of those big stores. They need deliveries every morning for the people of the city. If they choose to ban vehicles completely out of the city, you're talking on 15 to 20 transit vans bringing produce. Look at the pollution, the carbon footprint, and how many vans are involved in accidents with cyclists. So, you know, there has to be realistic goals here, and there can't be scaremongering. You know, and every road user needs to be respected, and every road user needs to work together. But efficiencies are always brought together by improved technologies, and that's what we're looking for your support on. That you give support to improved technologies, and not say no. We're sticking to what has been the model in Europe since 1950. We're staying at that. That's not right.
At this stage, I'll let in Deputy Kenny return.
Thanks, Cathaoirleach. Certainly, we would appear to be trying to reopen the whole debate about the 4.65 height. Now, we had that debate before when the Dublin Port Tunnel was being finalised. I was chairman of Dublin City Council's Transport Strategic Policy Committee at the time. I remember there was a lot of consultation, and the City Council, after that consultation, agreed on the height. I know the Department of Transport and the then Minister of Transport then also agreed on that height. So I think that kind of set the parameter for over-height vehicles in this state. And as you say, you know, many years' notice was given to the transport industry that they would have to try and make other arrangements to deal with that. Now, what you're suggesting is that some kind of a special permit system will be introduced to get around that. And you talk about 3 small areas in Dublin. Now, I represent one of those constituencies. The people living there wouldn't regard it as a small area. I mean, at the moment, the over-height vehicles come up from the port, up Alfred Byrne Road, onto the Malahide Road, maybe up to the N32 to get onto the M50, traversing the full length of Malahide Road. That's not a small area. Or alternatively, they use Collins Avenue and Griffith Avenue to get to the west. So, you know, and these people have lived with that problem for a long number of years, and they have had, you know, they've been, you know, they've now have a situation where it's no longer permissible to do that, and that the road haulage industry would have to comply with that. And, you know, you've certainly got a lot of years' notice to do this, you know. And I accept you have a problem, and I think that you talked about the vehicles being washed out on that. You know, you did not mention, you talked about the new permit system would travel by a defined route. Now, you didn't specify that defined route, and I'd like to know what defined route you have in mind for that. You didn't mention the question of bridge strikes, which do happen in the city. It does have an effect on the commuter service, the Dart line. It happens now and again. Thankfully, not very frequently, but it does happen. And when it does happen, it can knock the whole Dart commuter system out of action for a couple of hours, maybe during morning peak time or whenever, you know. So that has always been an argument as to why the over-height vehicles, or I take the point that a lot of this infrastructure was built during the Victorian times when, you know, you didn't have the type of vehicles you have now. But I think in cities, particularly where you have, you know, people living high density residential areas, you know, people do not want to see over-height vehicles coming up through their streets. And the fact that the Port Tunnel was built and the heavy goods vehicle strategy between the canals to ban HGVs except to have a special permit, and you're now arguing for another permit system. And to me, I think, you know, that raises a lot of serious questions, Chairman, about the you know, this whole question. I thought we had resolved it, and that the compliance with the new heights would be a fact of life. And I think we're now talking about changing that.
That is, I suppose, it has been in since the number on the first, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but obviously we're getting into the nitty-gritty, so maybe if you want to respond to...
And thanks for your comments, Deputy Kenny. The company, my company is based in Wexford. We employ 430 people. We employ people in Ballinasloe, Carlow, Dublin and Cork, but the majority is in Wexford. We're a rurally based company in an area of difficult employment and have been employing there for nearly 90 years and hope to continue to do so. But it's increasingly hard to be an employer in rural Ireland when you see regulations like this that tend to favour operating in a city where you've got the natural infrastructure of the motorways. A lot of our goods travel cross country. So we're seeing regulations that were brought in because of Dublin Port Tunnel affecting our ability to transfer goods from the southeast to the northwest. And in our 17 years of operating double decks, we've never had a strike. And having spoken to the operators of the bridges, including Irish Rails, bridge strikes are almost exclusively from construction machinery not properly loaded or ad hoc loads. They're not coming from double deck trailers or high cube trailers, such as operated by my company. These are run like bus routes. It's the same route every day. There are only 3 routes. One is Wexford to Ballinasloe, one is Wexford to Cork, and one is Wexford to Tala. All of those on national primary routes, a lot of them travelling at night, and then the loads are broken down into smaller distributions. But because of the Dublin Port Tunnel, we can now no longer ship our goods in these efficient systems, and we will increase our carbon footprint by 40%. We'll increase our emissions by 40%, and we will increase our road footprint by slightly more. So that the people living in Enniscorthy, they have to put up with nearly 2,000 of our trucks going through, 4,000 is return trips. There's 4,000 of our trucks travelling, crossing Enniscorthy Bridge every year. Because of the restrictions of 4.65, that 4,000 is going to go to 6,500.
Just like to add, thank you for allowing me to attend today. Sorry, Hugh Jenkins, I'm representing Deals, the retailer Deals. Your residents you talk about, who quite rightly have concerns about the welfare of the citizens around the area, are going to see an incredibly increased volume of traffic, and that in comparison to possibly the 2 or 3 centimetres of talking about the height of the vehicle, I would suggest pales into insignificance. And we may well be talking about concerns for your residents around just the volume of traffic, not the height of the vehicles going through those areas.
Yeah. Sorry. No, I'm trying to see if there's some consensus, or I'm not sure. So what you're saying, Mr. Scallon, is that, in other words, a permit system for that would enable your company to transport your goods would not affect the area, or if you like, the kind of situation that Deputy Kenny is talking about. In other words, that there is a solution that won't change anything from
Carl, I think we accepted the blanket issue about 4.65, but there are companies, and my company is just an example, that are running regular scheduled routes with compliance, with well-trained drivers that are not having bridge strikes and are not operating in an irresponsible manner, that respects the social environment we're at, and we wish to continue to operate that way. Please.
Can I just say, Chairman, that I got an email from Irish Rail. Now, they would dispute the fact that the bridge strikes are kind of ad hoc, some builder with a crane or something. I mean, I haven't got their, I can get their statistics and look at them again, but they say it's not just an ad hoc thing that happens because some crane or something, that there's more to it than that. And I accept the fact that your company, are very thorough about it and are not involved in that, but it does happen. Thankfully, it doesn't happen that frequently, but it does happen. But just to get back to the permit system, Kyle, I mean, at the moment there is a permit system which Dublin City Council and the Gardaí enforce. Now, we have a joint policing committee in the north central area of the city, and we had a meeting last month, and the meeting was taken up with this whole question of the enforcement.
My understanding is that at the minute, we'll say from the Wexford to Ballinasloe, whatever, as an example, that there has to be a whole series of permits got along the way. Am I correct in that interpretation? And that's increases and administration and all of that.
That's correct, Carlock. There are 7 there are 7 permits required because it involves transiting 7 counties. Some of those counties you can get an annual permit for around €300-400. Waterford is another example where it would cost 117,000 per annum because it's based on individual permits. So through Offaly it's €300. Through Waterford is 117,000 to do the same job. There is no consistency of the permits. The paperwork is different for every single county, and the fees are different for essentially the same job.
So the suggestion is that the permit situation would be regularised and consistent and collective, if you like, along the way.
I think a permanent system travelling through a high-density residential area is totally different to, travelling from Wexford to Ballinasloe across country. I mean, I think that we're not comparing like with like, and I don't think, that a system, I don't think, I think that you'd have to have a system for a residential area, high-density residential area, and another system for, travelling across country where you wouldn't, and most towns, I think, nowadays have a bypass, so that you wouldn't get that much traffic going through towns. As heretofore. But I was making a point there and I wasn't quite finished about the north central area of Dublin City, where we had a meeting last month with the Garda, the chief superintendent, and he was quite emphatic that as from the 1st of November, that, that the permits would not be allowed, and that the 4.65 height would have to apply. And that has been a long-standing, notice given to the entire haulage industry, and the day has arrived now, and we see that people are trying to change that.